extensive campaign to get you to their side. To talk about their side is Don Nikodim. Don, you are the executive director of the Missouri Pork Association. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
All right,
quick opportunity.
You got it. Quickly, what does the Missouri Right to Farm Amendment 1 bill say?
In real simple terms, it places the right to farm in the Constitution and gives farmers, all sizes and types, a constitutional level of protection, particularly against outside activists, animal rights extremists, and those kind of groups that have done a good job of going from state to state and imposing their will on the general public through a mass media major kind of a campaign that usually looks pretty impressive.
So where has a farmer's right to farm been infringed upon in the country?
Well, there's a number of states: Florida, Arizona, California. California is kind of unique in that our Attorney General has taken the state of Florida, or is in the process of taking them to task over rules that they passed in that state that impose upon Missouri farmers. There's been a variety of other issues in other states, smaller. Some of them deal with hunting issues, and not only just farming, but the groups that promote these agendas have a really broad agenda, and it usually deals with animals, but it has a huge impact on the crop side, because if you look at all the Midwestern states, corn and soybeans are predominantly grown to feed livestock.
This California egg law keeps coming up in my research and the conversation. I guess California passed a law that said California would only buy eggs from states that treat chickens a certain way. Doesn't the state of California have a right to decide where and who to buy eggs from?
They have a right to decide how California runs their business. They don't necessarily have a right to impose their will on interstate commerce and tell farmers in other states how to run theirs. The California law certainly is not based on science or empirical evidence that says what they do is better. It's just one of those kind of gut feeling things that particularly the animal rights groups were able to position in a way to get a lot of consumers that really don't understand agriculture, I think, in some respects, and haven't been there and done it, to vote for something. We have a classic example here in Missouri with what was called Prop B in 2010. There's a lot of hype and emotion in relation to puppies, and animal rights activists crafted the language, paid signature gatherers to get signatures to put it on the ballot, spent several $1 million to convince finally 51% of Missouri voters to pass it. The thing of it is, because a lot of folks had no idea that in this bill in 2010 it included a limitation on 50 dogs. Sounds like maybe a lot of dogs to you and me that maybe have a couple of dogs in the backyard, but if producing dogs is your livelihood and that's what puts groceries on your table, to have somebody, the state in this situation, arbitrarily decide that, hey, you're out of business because you can't have over 50 dogs is certainly concerning. It could apply to eggs or cows or chickens or acres of crops. You go down the list where it could next apply. Another thing that was included in that most people didn't know was that they redefined pet. And according to what voters passed in 2010, a pet now became any domesticated animal within the home or within proximity of the home. Well, domesticated animals, again, include cows and pigs and ducks and chickens, and most all farmers have them within proximity of the home. Fortunately, the legislature fixed those problems to some extent. That's the kind of thing we see happening in other states, and this is one thing that this particular constitutional amendment would not eliminate, but at least make it more difficult for things like that to take place.
Don Nikodim is the executive director of the Missouri Pork Association. I've read some things where small farmers are worried that this Amendment 1 would protect the large corporate farmers to the detriment of the small family farm.
Well, the opposition is good at what they do. They've sought out several hot-button issues that they know they can hype and resonate well with a lot of folks that haven't really looked at the issue. That's not a correct statement. The fact of the matter is this particular statutory or this particular constitutional amendment is good for all farmers of all sizes. It makes no distinction whether you're small or large or what type of facility or operation you have. It gives everybody a constitutional level of protection. So that's something that sounds good for the opponents to talk about. In reality, it just isn't so.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, going back to the dog thing, and the Prop B that you were referring to, and I know the Humane Society of the United States is a big proponent of not having Amendment 1 pass, and because there is such a huge issue with puppy mills in the state of Missouri, would this amendment dismantle what has been done with Prop B?
No, and that's another hot-button issue they seized upon to mislead the people. This does not change existing rules or regulations. I happened to be at a session last night where some of the proponents of the opposition were talking about. I mean, the allegations are just phenomenal, and they position them quite well when you have folks that don't know, but this does not do away with existing regulations, nor does it eliminate regulations on agriculture. Livestock producers still will continue to be regulated by the Department of Natural Resources as they are today, and just go down the list of things that apply to constitutional amendments. All constitutional amendments, if you look at them, are fairly broad, and they're designed that way because rules and regulations then apply to them. We all know we have a right to bear arms. Well, there's still rules and regulations beyond that prohibit us from owning any kind of gun or weapon that we want to, and there's a variety of other constitutional amendments, whether it be freedom of speech. You can't always just say anything you want to. It's been regulated. This would be no different. It just puts it at a higher level, at a higher bar, so that things are trying to be done to the agricultural community. At least there's got to be more scrutiny placed.
Don, a simple, stupid question, and that is, don't Missouri farmers have a right to farm now? And I understand you want to put in, you want to protect them further, but it seems like, how can you protect them any further than their constitutional right to, start a business and to, work in the property they own? I mean, aren't there already all of these protections already granted to farmers and to business people and to radio hosts and to executive directors of associations?
Oh my God, that's another area that's really been somewhat maligned. The fact is, there is a statutory right to farm in Missouri, but it's not constitutional. And as I just referenced, once you raise the bar to the constitutional level, it puts a higher calling on the state to make sure that if we're doing things, that it has a statewide public interest, not just something that's driven by an activist group or, people have this gut feelings they shouldn't do something. We had a case with a county ordinance here in the last couple of years where the county had an ordinance, people applied to get permits under it, and one permit was denied, and one of the commissioners just said, well, and this is on the public record in the court trial, I had a feeling we shouldn't issue this. It keeps things like that at bay, and again, it keeps some of the organizations that really push for these at bay. I think some things we need to think about in terms of the whole process. As this thing came through a public process at the Capitol, House and Senate committees fully vetted this in the public eye. We had lots of input, give and take, and discussion. It was passed by the General Assembly with a strong bipartisan support, and there was additions made at the request of counties that we want to make sure we contain county control measures, so that was added to it. So the list goes on. I mean, the thing just didn't happen. It's a long, ongoing process. Then if you look at the list of folks that support it, it's a long list, and quite frankly, I'm very proud we're on that list of supporters because besides me, there's a lot of really sharp, positive individuals over there that exhibit a lot of leadership. Then you look at the fact that we have 7 of our 8 congressional delegations that are on record publicly supporting it. Congressman Clay is from St. Louis area, the one that hasn't taken a position. The rest of our delegation has. And then you have a host of other organizations, one of which I want to mention is the Missouri VOAG Teachers Association has endorsed and publicly supports it. And these are the folks that train our young people to be future farmers in agriculture. So they understand the importance of it. And then just recently, the Missouri Attorney General who is the state's chief legal counsel, went on record to strongly support it. And then he followed with a series of about six press conferences around the state to essentially debunk the outlandish claims of the opposition and encourage people to vote for the Farming Rights Amendment.
Don, I want to interrupt you there just quick, because I'm short on time.
Sure.
The Kansas City Star, which is by no means a liberal rag, I think people could all agree it's much more conservative than it is liberal and or middle of the road. They came out against Amendment 1. What are your thoughts on the Kansas City Star and their editorial page telling voters to vote no on Amendment 1?
Well, they have, when you look at their position on mainstream agricultural issues, they tended to be in the negative. Again, I come back to thinking, well, if the Attorney General in his position says it's good, and this list of other mainstream ag groups, nearly 40 of them that are on board, I mean, why is it that, they've not been convinced that the allegations are correct? So, I think there's a lot of really good people done this, and the Kansas City Star, I guess, like I say, they can have their opinion. Everybody's entitled to one.
Don Nikodim, Executive Director of the Missouri Pork Association. Don, thanks for checking in, and good luck down the road.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
You got it. 733, Big 550, KTRS.
You're listening to